Out real quick to a couple people. So just give me a second and then we'll start. Okay. Mirror my screen. Okay. First question. Former astronaut Ellen Okia, I'm going to mispronounce a bunch of stuff today, says that although she doesn't have a definite idea of when it might happen, she blank that humans will someday need to be able to live on other environments than those found on Earth. This conjecture informs her interest in future research missions to the moon. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? So a good thing to do here is just underline some of the key words before and after. So doesn't have a definite idea, definitely stands out to me. And then this conjecture also definitely stands out to me. So looking at those two, which of the choices align with that? That would, for me, definitely be B, speculates. Beginning in the 1950s, Navajo Nation legislator Annie Dodge Wanaka continuously worked to promote public health. This blank effort involved traveling throughout the vast Navajo homeland and writing a medical dictionary for speakers of the Diné Bizad, the Navajo language. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? So again, just scanning here, continuously worked and traveling throughout. So I'm
missing like the first couple pages.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have a blank exam. All right, let's go through the choices. Continuously work, traveling throughout. So probably not impartial, not offhand. I don't see anything mandatory there, but persistent definitely fits with continuously work, so I'm going to go with that one. 3, following the principles of community-based participatory research, tribal nations and research institutions are equal partners in health studies conducted on reservations. A collaboration between the Crow tribe and Montana State University blank this model. Tribal citizens worked alongside scientists to design the methodology and continue to assist in data collection. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? So the paragraph describes a model where they're closely working together, and they start with the general idea and then they get more specific. So they talk about how two entities, the Crow tribe and Montana State University, work together. So looking at the choices, circumvents, definitely no. That would be like the opposite of what's being stated. Eclipses one bigger than the other, no, that's not right. Fabricates, I don't see anything there that would represent fabricating, so no, that's not right. So D, I think, exemplifies, that's the best choice there. The parasitic daughter plant increases its reproductive success by flowering at the same time as the host plant it has latched onto. In 2020, Zhang Quang Wu and his colleagues determined that the tiny daughter achieves this blank with its host by absorbing and utilizing a protein the host produces when it is about to flower. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? So they have a symbiotic relationship. The two well, it, let's see, absorbs, utilizing a protein the host produces when it's about, increases its reproductive success by flowering. So looking at this, same time, that's what really stands out to me. So sorry, let me clean that up. That's really the key word that we want to isolate on there. So hibernation, there's really nothing to do with hibernation in the description. Prediction, there's no predictions there. So what we're left with is synchronization and moderation. Synchronization definitely seems to be the better of the two choices because it really calls out that same time, which fits with synchronization. So that's A, synchronization. Given that the conditions in binary star systems should make planetary formation nearly impossible, it's not surprising that the existence of planets in such systems has lacked blank explanation. Roman Rafikov and Kedron Silsby shed light on the subject when they used modeling to determine a complex set of factors that could support a planet's development. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? So the first section really describes something that seems impossible, that really stands out to me. And then the second part really goes into a model that two scientists came up with a complex set of factors that could support planet's development. So in the first section, we're looking for a word that is in some ways the opposite of a complex set of factors. So let's go through the choices. A discernible, maybe. Straightforward, yeah, I think that is a good, strong candidate. Inconclusive, no, because again, we are looking for something that is kind of the opposite of what's described in the second part. And unbiased, I don't see anything related to opinion or bias in there. So between the two, I think straightforward is the better choice, just because, plugging it back in there, it's not surprising that the existence of planets in such systems has lacked a straightforward explanation. Why? Because, and then the second part is why. Because it ultimately takes a complex set of factors in order to model that system of development. So B would be the right choice there. Seminole/Muskogee director Sterling Harjo blanked television's tendency to situate native characteristics in the distant past. This rejection is evident in his series Reservation Dogs, which revolves around teenagers who dress in contemporary styles and whose dialogue is laced with current slang. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? So let's just, again, key in, underline some of the key words here. Rejection, that really stands out to me. Just going through the choices here, what of these choices matches most closely to rejection? Let's see. Proclaims, no. Foretells, no. And then, just looking at the two choices and putting it back in there. The director repudiates or recants. I think repudiates goes in a little bit better than recants, because recants would imply that he himself had a position that had subsequently changed. And there's nothing in that passage that denotes that he has changed his earlier position. So repudiates, he's repudiating what is then described later in that section. So repudiates is the correct choice there. In 2007, computer scientist Louis van Aan was working on converting printed books into a digital format. He found that some words were distorted enough that digital scanners couldn't recognize them, but most humans could easily read them. Based on that finding, von Ahn invented a simple security test to keep automated bots out of websites, and we've all seen this. The first version of the reCAPTCHA test asked users to type one known word and one of the many words scanners couldn't recognize. Correct answers proved the users were humans and added data to the book digitizing project. Which choice best states the main purpose of the text? So let's just, look at all of this. They're describing something that this computer scientist created, which is reCAPTCHA, right? Connected to that, how did this come into existence? It was part of a digital book scanning project. So A, to me, sounds like it's strong choice. Definitely not B. They didn't really go into how digital scanners work. C, to call attention to von Ahn's book digitizing project, kind of, sort of, but they specifically called out reCAPTCHA. So, I'm going to eliminate that. And then, there are two answers that reference reCAPTCHA, but there's nothing in that paragraph that really discussed how popular reCAPTCHA was. So I'm going to go with A to discuss von Ahn's invention of reCAPTCHA. 8. The following text is from Edith Wharton's 1905 novel, The House of Mirth. Lily Barton and a companion are walking through a park. Lily had no real intimacy with nature, but she had a passion for the appropriate and could be keenly sensitive to a scene which was the fitting background of her own sensations. The landscape outspread below her seemed an enlargement of her present mood, and she found something of herself in its calmness, its breadth, its long, free reaches. On the nearer slopes, the sugar maples wavered like pyres of light. Lower down was a massing of gray orchards, and here and there, the lingering green of an oak grove. Okay, so anytime the SAT is underlining stuff, you really want to, focus on that. So the question is, which choice best describes the function of the underlined sentence in the text as a whole? Okay, so let's look at this in totality. It creates a detailed image of the physical setting of the scene. Again, isolate on that first what they had underlined. Does that, what they underline, does it create detailed image of the physical setting? No, it talks about her emotional state or psychological state, so that's probably not it. It establishes that a character is experiencing an internal conflict. I don't see anything in there referencing internal conflict. It makes an assertion that the next sentence expands on. Possibly. Let's look at D. It illustrates an idea that is introduced in the previous sentence. Yeah, that, I think that fits, because if you look at this underlined portion, it's set up by the previous sentence. So leading in, she's not familiar with nature, she doesn't have a strong connection to it, but then it goes and expands upon how she actually does have a connection to nature, and she has kind of like this emotional link to it. So D, it illustrates an idea that is introduced in the previous sentence is the correct answer there. 9, a study by a team including finance professor Madhu I'm not even going to try, suggests that exposure to sunshine during the workday can lead to overly optimistic behavior. Using data spanning from 1994 to 2010 for a set of U.S. companies, the team compared over 29,000 annual earnings forecasts to the actual earnings later reported by these companies. That's really interesting. The team found that the greater the exposure to sunshine at work in the 2 weeks before a manager submitted an earnings forecast, the more the manager's forecast exceeded what the company actually earned that year. Which choice best states the function of the underlined sentence in the overall structure of the text? So, again, isolating on that underlined part. So they're looking, they're reviewing data. Does A, to summarize the results of the team's analysis? No, because they're just referencing that they reviewed data. They didn't actually reference any summary of the analysis. To present a specific example that illustrates the study's findings, maybe. C, to explain part of the methodology used in the team study. Yeah, that could be a good option just because it, by outlining the breadth of the work that they are doing to perform this analysis, that would be considered part of the methodology. D, to call out a challenge the team faced in conducting its analysis. No, there's nothing in this paragraph that references any challenge. So between the two options, I don't see a specific example. I see a broader description of a methodology. They're defining how they're going to perform the analysis. So I'm going to go with C, to explain part of the methodology used in the team study. 10. The following text is adapted from Edith Nesbit's 1906 novel, The Railway with Children. Mother did not spend all her time in paying dull visits to dull ladies and sitting dully at home waiting for dull ladies to pay visits to her. She was almost always there, ready to play with the children and read to them and help them do their home lessons. Besides this, she used to write stories for them while they were in school and read them aloud after tea, and she always made up funny pieces of poetry for their birthdays and other great occasions. According to the text, what is true about Mother? Let's just go through them. Wishes that more ladies would visit her there. No, I don't see anything. Birthdays are her favorite special occasion. I didn't see that anywhere in the passage. She creates stories and poems for her children. Yeah, that is described. Reading to her children is her favorite activity. There's nothing there that states that's an uncorroborated assumption, so I'm going to go with C. She creates stories and poems for her children. 11. The following text is from Maggie Pogue Johnson's 1910 poem, Poet of Our Race. In this poem, the speaker is addressing Paul Laurence Dunbar, a black author. Thou, with stroke of mighty pen, hast told of joy and mirth, and read the hearts and souls of men as cradled from their birth. The language of the flowers, thou hast read them all, and Eowyn, the little brook, responded to thy call. Which choice best states the main purpose of this text? Okay, so poetry is not my biggest strength, but okay, so they're definitely describing something where it was kind of similar to that previous question, that they have that deep connection, this Walt Whitman thing going on with nature. Potentially, that could be an option. B, to establish that a certain writer has read extensively about a variety of topics. I don't see anything in the passage that describes that. C, to call attention to the writer's careful and elaborately detailed writing process, potentially, because let me see what, or D, to recount fond memories of an afternoon spent in nature with a certain writer. I don't see any reference to him spending time with someone else. Perceptive, to read the hearts and souls of men, that really sticks out to me, because if he's able to make this kind of connection to read the hearts and souls of men, that would definitely be something that would be perceptive. So I'm going to go with A. To You is an 1856 poem by Walt Whitman. In the poem, Whitman suggests that readers whom he addresses directly have not fully understood themselves, writing blank. Which quotation from To You most effectively illustrates that claim? You have not known what you are. You have slumbered upon yourself all your life. Your eyelids have been the same as closed upon most of the time. These immense meadows, these interminable rivers, you are immense and interminable as they. C, I should have made my way straight to you long ago. I should have blabbed nothing but you. I should have chanted nothing but you. D, I will leave all and come and make the hymns of you. None has understood you, but I understand you. Two choices stand out to me. A and D. Whitman suggests that readers whom he addresses directly. So, of these choices, which are strong candidates in which he is addressing the reader directly? Not B. I don't see that in B. I don't see that in C either. Of the two, I think A is definitely stronger with respect to him addressing the reader directly. He says you. That really kind of there's no more direct than starting that with you. So I'm going to go with A, because that is of the available choices, the direct that you portion really stands out to me. 13, born in 1891 to a Quechua speaking family in the Andes Mountains of Peru, Martin Chamby is today considered to be one of the most renowned figures in Latin American photography. In a paper for an art history class, a student claims that Chamby's photographs have considerable ethnographic value. In his work, Chamby was able to capture diverse elements of Peruvian society, representing his subjects with both dignity and authenticity. Which finding of True would most directly support the student's claim? Okay. So, of these choices, I don't see technical skill, so that rules out B for me. During his lifetime, Chamby was known and celebrated within native Peru. I don't see any reference to Spain, Mexico, and Argentina. Some of the people and places Chamby did photograph have long been popular subjects, Peruvian photographers. Maybe, but what really stands out to me is considerable ethnographic value. And that, to me, connects with the reference to people's sites and customs, because that is the ethnographic component of his work. And I don't see reference to his works really in D, so I'm going to go with A. All right. These are hard, by the way. They put this table out. Some researchers studying indigenous actors and filmmakers in the United States have turned their attention to the early days of cinema, particularly the 1910s and 1920s, when people like James Young Deere, Dark Cloud, Edwin Carraway, and Lillian St. Cyr, known professionally as Red Wing, were involved in one way or another with numerous films. In fact, so many films and associated records for this era have been lost that counts of those four figures output should be taken as bare minimums rather than totals. It's entirely possible, for example, that blank. Which choice effectively uses data from the table to complete the example? So really, anytime you get a question like this, it's kind of, this is one of the SAT tricks. It's a little bit overwhelming. You really want to focus on that last sentence in an example in the reading and writing section that involves table data. So what does that last sentence say? In fact, so many films and associated records for this era have been lost that counts of those four figures output should be taken as bare minimums rather than totals. It's entirely possible, for example, that blank. So again, they're saying, that this, they're almost implying that it's an estimation, that this is, you can't even trust the data in the table, that this is what's recorded, but it could be something else. So of those choices, what most closely aligns with that statement? I'll just skip ahead for this one. It's C. And the reason why it's C is that it aligns with the statement in that last sentence, that these are just estimates and that they actually did way more. So if you read through each of the questions, you'll see that C stands out because it aligns with the prompt in that last sentence, in that the data in the table is only a small portion of what they actually did. Again, this is something you'll get with practice. Again, these table questions are kind of tricky because they go over a lot of data. The key point that you want to take away from SAT practice and strategy is focus on that last sentence. That last sentence is going to provide you the prompt for what you need to look and kind of isolate on in terms of the options or choices that you're presented. You'll get better with it. I didn't get this correct when I took it. It took me a while. So let's apply that same strategy to the next question. They give us a table. Alicia Montesinos, Navarro, Isabella Storer, and Roseo Perez Barales recently examined several plots within a diverse plant community in southeast Spain. The researchers calculated that if individual plants were randomly distributed on this particular landscape, only 15% would be with other plants and patches of vegetation. They counted the number of juvenile plants of 5 species growing in patches of vegetation and the number of growing alone on bare ground and compared those numbers to what would be expected if the plants were randomly distributed. Again, isolate on this last sentence. Based on the results, they claim that plants of these species that grow in close proximity to other plants gained an advantage at an early development stage. So, again, these take time, but ultimately, D is the option that most closely aligns with that last sentence, and that reads, for each species, the percentage of juvenile plants growing in patches of vegetation was substantially higher than what would be expected if the plants were randomly distributed. Because again, you want to be able to connect that last sentence to, it's the choice that most closely connects to that last sentence in that passage. Again, it's the same pattern that they used in the previous question. It's just something you can use as a tool when you're presented questions such as this, because the SAT is tricky. They're hoping you get a little overwhelmed with the data. Again, you have to focus and isolate on what matters. And in questions with table data, you really want to focus on that last sentence and then find the answer that most closely aligns with the hypothesis represented in that last sentence. 16, in mountains of Brazil, Barbacenia tomentosa and Barbacenia macarantha, 2 plants in the Veloisa family, established themselves on soilless, nutrient-poor patches of quartzite rock. Plant ecologists Ana Abrejo and Patricia de Brito Costa used microscopic analysis to determine that the roots of the 2 plants, which grow directly into the quartzite, have clusters of fine hairs near the root tip. Further analysis indicated that these hairs secrete both malic and citric acids. The researchers hypothesized that the plants depend on dissolving the underlying rock with these acids, as the process not only creates channels for continued growth, but also releases phosphates that provide vital nutrient phosphorus. Again, anytime you get these science questions, focus on that last part. Which finding, if true, would most directly support the researchers' hypothesis? A, other species in the Veloisa family are found in terrains with more soil but have root structures similar to those of those 2 that are mentioned. No, I don't see anything there that represents that. Though the 2 both have secrete citric and malic acids, each species produces the acids in different proportions. There's nothing in reference to proportions in the passage. C, the roots of the 2 carve new entry points into rocks even when cracks in the surface are readily available. Or D, the 2 thrive even when transferred to the surfaces of rocks that do not contain phosphates. Again, isolating on that last part, hypothesize that the plants depend on dissolving rock with these acids. So what would actually support their hypothesis? they need the rocks. The rocks are a vital part of them creating that nutrient. So a hypothesis that says even though they could get into the soil with existing cracks, they need the rock to dissolve the acid so that they can create the nutrients that they need to grow, which would be C. Herbivorous sauropod dinosaurs could grow more than 100 feet long and weigh up to 80 tons. And some researchers have attributed the evolution of sauropods to such massive sizes to increase plant production resulting from high levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide during the Mesozoic era. However, there is no evidence of significant spikes in carbon dioxide levels coinciding with relevant periods in sauropod evolution, such as when the first large sauropods appeared. Okay, so that stands out to me. Anytime they say however, that's a good thing to key off of. Such as when several sauropods appeared. When several sauropod lineages underwent further evolution towards gigantism, or when sauropods reached their maximum known sizes, suggesting that, okay, so reading that last section again, just go ahead and read it to yourself. And then the prompt, which choice most logically completes the text? I don't see references, well, there are, however, when several lineages underwent further evolution in China, or when no evidence. So they're talking about the release of carbon dioxide, and they then reference that there's no significant spikes coinciding with their evolution, and then they talk about the increase in size, so that would fit with B. The evolution of larger body sizes in sauropods does not depend on increased atmospheric carbon dioxide. In documents called judicial opinions, judges explain the reasoning behind their legal rulings, and in those explanations, they sometimes cite and discuss historical and contemporary philosophers. Legal scholar and philosopher Anita L. Allen argues that while judges are naturally inclined to mention philosophers whose views they align with their own positions, the strongest judicial opinions consider and rebut potential objections. Discussing philosophers whose views conflict with judges' views could therefore, again, key off that last part, discussing philosophers whose views conflict with judges' views, and then that links to the previous sentence that says the judges that align with philosophers, but also reference philosophers that do not align with their own. So which choice most logically completes the text? So they just referenced in those two sentences which we just described. Is it A, allow judges to craft judicial opinions without needing to consult philosophical sources? Definitely no. Help judges improve the arguments they put forward in their judicial opinions? Yeah, that could be it. Make judicial opinions more comprehensible to readers without, no, there's nothing in there. Bring judicial opinions in line with views that are broadly held among philosophers. I don't see anything there that references that, so it would be B. Help judges improve their arguments, because the strongest judges references both the philosophers that align with their opinion as well as reference philosophers that do not align with their opinion, but they rebut it. That is the basis of a rebuttal. 19. Public awareness campaigns about the need to reduce single-use plastics can be successful, says researcher Kim Borg of Monash University in Australia. When these campaigns give consumers a choice. For example, Japan achieved a 40% reduction in plastic bag use after cashiers were instructed to ask customers whether blank wanted a bag. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? Whether one? No. Whether you? Maybe. Whether it? No, that you can't refer. Whether they wanted a bag, that aligns most closely with standard English. In ancient Greece, an Epicurean was a follower of Epicurus, a philosopher whose beliefs revolved around the pursuit of pleasure. Epicurus defined pleasure as the absence of pain in the body and of trouble in the blank, that all life's virtues derived from this absence. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? This is a tricky one. So just reviewing the options in front of us, not D, because the sentence continues, the idea or what's being expressed continues. C, I don't think a semicolon would be used there, or a, yeah, I think A is the strongest choice, and the reason, let me take a look. The convention being tested is punctuation between a main clause and a participle phrase. The choice correctly uses a comma to mark the boundary between the main clause of Epicurus and soul and the participle phrase, positing and then followed by absence, that provides additional information about how Epicurus defined pleasure. Not my strongest question. I'll have to come back to that. We'll come back and review it. British scientists James Watson and Francis Crick won the Nobel Prize in part for their 1953 paper announcing the double helix structure of DNA. But it is misleading to say that Watson and Crick discovered the double helix. Blank findings were based on the famous X-ray. I'm just going to skip ahead. Which completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English. Their, which is a conjunction of they and are findings? No. It is findings? No. Their findings, yes. Its findings, no, but the subject, they're referring to Watson and Crick, so their most closely fits there. 22. In 1937, Chinese-American screen actor Anna May Wong, who had portrayed numerous villains and secondary characters but never a heroine, finally got a starring role in Paramount Pictures' Daughter of Shanghai, a film that blank expanded, followed by a quote, expanded the range and possibilities for Asian images on screen. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the convention of standard English? I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not the best at these standard English questions, so I'm just going to read off the answer and the explanation. It's C. And the reason they state is that the conventions being tested are punctuation use between the titles and proper nouns, between verbs and integrated quotations. No punctuation is needed to set off the proper noun Steine Chine from the title that describes Chine as critic, because Steine Chine is essentially information identifying the critic. Okay, I need to reread that one. Go look at that one in the answer key later. In 1637, the price of tulips skyrocketed in Amsterdam, with single bulbs of rare varieties selling for up to the equivalent of $200,000 in today's US dollars. Some historians blank that this tulip mania was the first historical instance of an acid bubble, which occurs when investors drive prices to highs not supported by actual demand. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? We got to look at tense. Some historians blank. Claiming, having claimed definitely is not correct. Some historians to claim, no, that doesn't seem right either. Some historians claiming, no, that doesn't sound right. Claim, it's just that simple. Researchers studying magnetosensation have determined why some soil-dwelling roundworms in the southern hemisphere move in the opposite direction of Earth's magnetic field when searching for blank in the northern hemisphere. The magnetic field points down into the ground, but in the southern hemisphere it points up toward the surface and away from the worm's food source. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to standard English? So they're talking food. I'm gonna have to come back to that one. We'll get better at these standard English ones. They say it's D. It's A. And the reasoning they put behind it is the convention being tested is colon use within a sentence. A colon used in this way introduces information that illustrates or explains information that has come before it. In this case, the colon introduces the following explanation of why some roundworms in the southern hemisphere move in the opposite directions of Earth's magnetic field. All right, whatever. Scientists believe that, unlike most other species of barnacle, turtle barnacles can dissolve the cement-like secretions they use to attach blank to a sea turtle shell, enabling the barnacles to move short distances across the shell's surface. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? Okay. They use to attach it? No. To attach them? No. What sticks out to me is either themselves or itself. To attach themselves. That fits most closely with standard English. Almost done with this section. The classic children's board game Chutes and Ladders is a version of an ancient Nepalese game, Paramapada Sonapanada. In both games, players encounter good or bad spaces while traveling along a path. Landing on one of the good spaces, blank, a player to skip ahead and arrive closer to the end goal. Which choice completes this text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? All right, let's look at the choices. Landing on one allowed. Are allowing? Definitely not. Have allowed, that is switching tenses. No. Allow or allows? Allow, put it in the sentence. Landing on one of the good spaces, allow a player? No, allows. A. In 1943, in the midst of World War II, mathematics professor Grace Hopper was recruited by the U.S. military to help the war effort by solving complex equations. Hopper's subsequent career would involve more than just blank. As a pioneering computer programmer, Hopper would help usher in the digital age. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? They reference A, and the reasoning they provide is the convention being tested is the use of punctuation to mark boundaries between supplements and clauses. The comma after equations is used to separate the independent clause, Hopper's ... equation, from the supplementary adverb phrase though. The colon after though is used to mark the boundary between the clause ending with though and the following clause, as ... age. Again, you'll get it with practice. 28. In 1453, English King Henry VI became unfit to rule after falling gravely ill. As a result, Parliament appointed Richard, 3rd Duke of York, who had a strong claim to the English throne, to rule as Lord Protector. Upon recovering 2 years later, forcing an angered Richard from the royal court and precipitating a series of battles later known as the War of the Roses. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? Okay, upon recovering 2 years later, Henry resumed his reign. That is possible. The reign of Henry resumed, that's not standard English. Henry's reign resumed, possibly. It was Henry who resumed his reign. That's not standard English. So between the two, just to keep the tense aligned with the tense referenced in the sentence, resumed would be the correct answer. Henry resumed his reign. Although novels and poems are considered distinct literary forms, many authors have created hybrid works that incorporate elements of both. Bernardine Evaristo's The Emperor's Babe, blank, is a verse novel, a book-length narrative complete with characters and a plot, but conveyed in short, crisp lines of poetry rather than prose. Which choice completes the text with the most logical transition? Hybrid works, that stands out to me, so they're kind of together. By contrast, I don't see contrast. Consequently, no. Possibly. Secondly, no. For example, it's D, for example, because it's linking what is referenced in that first sentence to what they describe later. Yep, that's right. Cool. 30. At 2 weeks old, the time their critical socialization period begins, wolves can smell but cannot yet see or hear. Domesticated dogs, blank, can see, hear, and smell by the end of 2 weeks. Let's just skip to the end. Which choice completes the text with the most logical transition? So they're saying in that first sentence, wolves can do this. They can smell, but they can't see or hear. Dogs, on the other hand, can do all three. So, in other words, no. For instance, they're making a contrast. They're contrasting wolves with dogs. So C is the best choice there. Researchers Helena, Lucia, and Marco report that while mathematicians have historically worked alone, evidence points to a shift in the opposite direction. Blank mathematicians are choosing to collaborate with their peers, a trend illustrated by a rise in the number of mathematics publications credited to multiple authors. Which choice completes the text with the most logical transition? So in the first part, they talk about, again, traditionally worked alone. And then what do they talk about in the second part? Shift in the opposite direction. For this reason? Maybe. Furthermore? No. This is a tough one. So in the last component of the first sentence references evidence points to a shift in the opposite direction. So what's the opposite direction? The opposite of working alone is working with other people. So what do they describe in that last sentence? Mathematicians are choosing to collaborate with their peers. So similarly, fits in, makes that connection from the first, from the example that they were kind of giving in that first part to what they reference in that second part. All right, last two, yep. While researching a topic, a student has taken the following notes. Petrosaurs were flying reptiles that existed millions of years ago. In a 21 study, some scientists analyzed fragments of petrosaur jaw bones located in the Sahara Desert. She was initially unsure if the bones belonged to juvenile or adult petrosaurs. She used advanced microscopic techniques to determine the bones had fewer growth lines relative to the bones of fully grown petrosaurs. She concluded that the bones belonged to juveniles. The student wants to present the study and its findings. Which choice most effectively uses the relevant information from the notes to accomplish this goal? Okay. I don't see anything in reference to the student being unsure. Petrosaur bones located in the Sahara Desert were the focus of the 21 study. Focus? I don't see anything there in reference to focus. See, in the 2021 study used Java and Microsoft. I think we really want to key on this last part. She concluded that the bones belonged to juveniles. So I want to find an answer that references that. I'm actually going to go back and say A is possible. B, there's nothing there referencing her conclusion. C, there's nothing there referencing her conclusion. So it's just by narrowing it down, to me, it's either A or D. There's more context and detail in D that aligns with the notes, specifically the reference to the petrosaur jaw bones in the desert and the few growth lines, which again is linked with the conclusion. So I'm gonna go with D. 33. While researching a topic, a student has taken the following notes. African American women played prominent roles in the civil rights movement, including the famous 1963 March on Washington. Civil rights activist Anna Hedgeman, one of the march's organizers, was a political advisor who had worked for President Truman. Civil rights activist Daisy Bates was a well-known journalist and advocate for school desegregation. Hedgeman worked behind the scenes to make sure a woman was included in the lineup of speakers at the march. Bates was the sole woman to speak, delivering a brief but memorable address to the cheering crowd. Okay, so I remember with these passages, you really kind of want to focus on the last few bullet points. And then the prompt for the question says, the student wants to compare the two women's contributions to the March on Washington. Which choice most effectively uses relevant information from the notes to accomplish the goal? So that sole woman to speak really stands out to me, because Hedgeman, on the other hand, didn't speak, and Bates was the one person that spoke. So that, of the choices, Bates being the only person to speak is only referenced in C. So I'm going to go with C there. Cool. So we did that in about, I think, 45 or 50 minutes. So the SAT is much shorter than that. So as you can see, like we wouldn't have been able to get through all the questions. So it just comes with practice. Even I'm a little rusty. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't unsure of like 31 because I really thought it was B. So basically, it was saying like it's saying that the trend goes driven by rise in the number, like after that, and also it's talking about like it's like I could be wrong.
Yeah, actually, I just looked at the key. You are right. Let me read the reasoning behind that. Increasingly logically signals that the claim in the sentence that mathematicians are collaborating with their peers marks a change relative to what was traditionally done. You're right. Yeah, that does fit better, because they're talking about a shift from how things used to be to how they are. Increasingly kind of makes is the line drawn between those 2 points in time. So good catch there. We can take like a 10-minute break if you guys want. So what do you guys think of this format? Is it helpful, just like hearing the questions and going through them? Are the explanations that I'm giving sufficient? I know some of these, like the explanations that I could be giving are probably a little bit better, but hopefully as I go through this more as well, I'll be able to kind of give a little bit more precise rigor to explaining some of these. But yeah, it'll get better. So, who's in 11th grade? Okay, so you'll be taking the SAT. I think they're taking the SAT. You'll be taking the SAT in school in April?
I think so.
Okay, cool. Have you practiced or done any SAT questions?
Yeah, I know.
Cool. When do you plan on taking because I think you can use your high school score if you like it, or you could take it again, or?
Yeah, no, a couple of people that I knew that graduated last year, they took it at school and then they took it again.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And I just-
I took it like in the fall, and then I'm gonna take it at school, and then I'm gonna take it in the summer.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And then I can take one better of the three.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that makes sense. Yep.
You see that in the hospital?
What is this?
It's a book that you're writing.
Whose book?
My book.
Oh, you wrote a book?
We're
Sure.
writing a book for a class that we have together.
Yeah.
What class?
Creative writing.
Oh, okay.
I use like movies. I use a bunch of movies all combined in one, plus
What-
personal experience to make this weird story.
What movies?
Like there's shows that our mom and dad are watching. It's so odd, and I'm just watching it. It's like Alien Coincidence on Netflix.
Never heard of it.
It's so strange.
Never heard of
I
it.
didn't choose it. My parents were watching it.
Okay.
And there's like this murder in town with this town doctor, so I'm kind of using that in my story. It's a really weird story, but
So how many pages does it have to be?
there's not really a cap. Like I'm gonna probably put like 10, probably like 10 pages. Yeah, I'm like I'm close to 10. I have 5 right now, and I'm like totally.
If you need any water or snacks, I've got a snack table over there. I'm gonna switch it up. I think we're just gonna go to the math section because I need a break from the reading section. All right, good to go?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. What is 10% of 470? So another way to think of 10% is, well, 50%, by the way, is 0.5. 10% is then subsequently 0.1. 470 times 0.1. You can type that on your calculator. It's 47. 4x plus 6 equals 18. Which equation has the same solution as the given equation? Well, let's simplify this. 4x plus 6 equals 18. Bring the 6 over. 18 minus 6. 4x equals 12. There it is. See? The total cost in dollars to rent a surfboard consists of a $25 service fee and a $10 per hour rental fee. A person rents a surfboard for T hours and intends to spend a maximum of $75 to rent the surfboard. Which inequality represents this situation? Okay, so let's write down what we have. So $10 per hour rental fee, $25 flat fee, T hours. So 10 T per hour, 10 T. T represents per hour, plus the $25 service fee. And they said they want to spend a maximum of $75. So all of that has to be not equal, but actually less than or equal to 75. So we can just plug that there and we rewrite the equation. 10T plus 25. So 10T, bring over the 75 minus 25, 10T, 50. Let's see what we got of these choices. Did I do this right? Or they don't even want it. It's this one. That's right here. That goes right there. Interesting. Each face of a fair 14-sided die is labeled with the number 1 through 14, with a different number appearing on each face. If the die is rolled one time, what is the probability of rolling a 2? I don't know. Like if you have a 6-sided, like make this a little bit simpler. If you have a 6-sided die, what is the probability that you roll one of the numbers? Oh, my apologies. The function g is defined by g of x, which equals x squared plus 9. Which of the value of x is g of x equals 25? Okay, so let's just plug that in. Let's rewrite this. G of x equals 25, so that goes into there. So 25 equals x squared plus 9. Rewriting this, x squared equals 25 minus 9. X squared equals 16. Square root of 16. X is 4. Yeah? Cool. Each face of a fair 14-sided die. Okay, I don't know, man. It's 1 in 14. If you have a dice and the odds, it's that one's just pretty easy and intuitive. A printer produces posters at a constant rate of 42 posters per minute. At what rate in posters per hour does the printer produce the posters? So 42 per minute. There are 42 equals 1 minute. There's 60 minutes, right, in 1 hour. And they say, at what rate in posters per hour? So the per hour, you got 42 times, let me think about this. I'm going to go back. So in 1 hour, it produces 42 times 60, right? 42 times 60. Yeah, that, I don't know why I was overthinking it. It produces 2,520 per hour. The function f is defined by the equation f of x equals 7x plus 2. What is the value of f of x when x equals 4? What's another way to write that? F of 4 equals 7, and then every time x appears, we have to plug that 4 in, plus 2. So f of 4 equals 28 plus 2. F 4 equals 30. The answer is 30. I don't know. So yeah. One sec. Let me just double check my work there. Yes, that's correct. Teacher is creating an assignment worth 70 points. The assignment will consist of questions worth 1 point and questions worth 3 points. Which equation represents the situation where x represents the number of 1 point questions and y represents the number of 3 point questions? Okay, so this is just another linear equation. X is the number of 1 point questions. So 1 point times the number of 1 point questions, which is x, and then y is 3 points, so we got 3 next to that y, and then they reference in the beginning, assignment is worth 70 points, right? You can just rewrite, you can take the 1 out, you can just write x plus 3y equals 70, which is D. The solution to the given system of equations is x, y. What is the value of x? So they tell us in the beginning y equals minus 3x. So we can actually plug that into the second question. So 4x plus minus 3x equals 15. So just remember to apply the so that just x equals 15, right? Is this good explanation for the algebra stuff?
It is. Just 9. Are we skipping 9 too?
Oh, sorry. Thanks for calling me out. The right triangles LMN and PQ are similar, where L and M correspond to P and Q respectively. Okay, let's draw a right triangle. 2 of them. Right? They're similar. We'll call this LMN, and we'll call this PQR, right? Angle M, right, is a measure of 53 degrees. What do we know about triangles? Triangles, 180 degrees, right? So if it's a right triangle, 180 equals the right angle, 90, plus 53. And then we have that missing angle, angle N, right? So 90 plus 53 is 143. 180 minus 143 is 37. That other angle is 37, right? Everybody get that? Makes sense? Pretty easy. There's a convention, by the way. I think I believe the 90 degree is associated with the first letter, right? L, M, N. You just kind of go clockwise with the right angle. I'll have to look that up to double check myself out. But I'm pretty sure I'm right. Let me just double check. What? Is it wrong? They're saying B, 53 degrees. But maybe I misread. Oh, yeah. So they're asking for Q. Yeah. My own nomenclature and convention, I should have followed it. So L is 90, M is 53, N is 37. Using that same, you just go, the first letter reference is the 90-degree angle, then you go clockwise around the triangle. So PQR, P is 90, Q is the same as M. Or excuse me, Q is the same as M, that's 50 to 53 degrees. And then R is the remainder, 37. So it's B. We solved that one. 11. Which of the following equations is most appropriate linear model for the data shown on the scatter plot? What do you notice about this line? Does it have a positive or negative slope? Yeah. So if it has a negative slope, y equals mx plus b, right? So that eliminates c and d. What do we know about a line when in a standard equation? We know the x-intercept. That's what b is, right? So a negative value. What's that? Sorry, yes, I misspoke. So it can't be, looking at the graph, y has, it's in the positive axis direction, so it's B. Because the y-intercept right there is at 10 something. It's not negative, right? Cool, the graph of y equals f of x is shown. Just want to make sure I'm not skipping questions. Where the function is defined by f of x equals ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx plus d, and a, b, c, and d are constants. Bunch of nonsense. For how many values does f of x equal 0? So this is just a convention. When f of x equals 0, that's the same thing as saying that y equals 0. When does y equals 0 for this function? It's when it crosses the x-axis, right? Because when it crosses the x-axis, that means by definition y equals 0. So how many times does that happen? It happens once. Just follow my pencil. Twice. Follow my pencil. Happens 3 times, right? C. 14, z squared plus 10z minus 24 equals 0. What is one of the solutions to the given equation? Well, we gotta set it up, standard format, z, because we gotta get that z squared. We know this is negative, so what are 2 numbers you got? What's that? 12 and, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Right. Exactly. So another way you can think about it, 6 and 4 get to 10, but I can't do 6 and 4 because if I did -6 and -4, that wouldn't get me that would give me a positive 24. That wouldn't give me a negative 24. So that's just a mental math thing, like he said. It's 12 and 2 because I can get a positive. I need a high positive number because I know that second number is going to bring me down a little bit. You get 12z minus 2z, which gives you 10z, and then the sign here gives you the negative 24. Bacteria are growing in a liquid growth medium. There were 300,000 cells per millimeter during an initial observation. The number of cells per millimeter doubles every 3 hours. How many cells per millimeter will there be after 15 hours of the initial observation? So, going through it, 300,000 per millimeter, right? It doubles every 3 hours. How many cells per millimeter will there be 15 hours? What do you think about this one?
15 divided by 3, that's 5, so then you 2 to the power 5, it's 32.
Yeah, so this is an exponential equation. And the reason they state is let y represent the number of cells per millimeter times the number of hours. So what kind of equation does that give us? They say that since the number of cells doubles every 3 hours, the relationship between x and y can be represented by an exponential equation. So the basis of an exponential equation, you get y, and then a, b, and then to some power, x and k. I'm going to come back to this one. I need to review that a little bit further. Which expression is equivalent to 6x to the 8th power, y squared, plus 12x to the 2nd squared, and then y squared. Okay, so we know we can do some factoring here, right? So what's the common component here? So we got 6, because 6 both goes into 6 and 12, right? And then of the x's, I can take a 2 out, right? Because I got 2 in the next one. So I know by my rules that when I multiply exponents, I actually add them. So that gets me back to 6x to the 8th for the first part. And then I have a y squared in both. Cool. So I'm going to put that y squared there. So what am I left with then? So I got 6x to the 8th y squared. So I'm good on there. And then 6 goes into 12 twice, right? And then I'm good on my x squared there, right? And I'm good on my y squared there, right? So I'm left with 6x squared, y squared, x to the 6th plus 2, which is c. A neighborhood consists of 2-hectare park and a 35-hectare residential area. The total number of trees in the neighborhood is 3,934. The equation 2x plus 35y equals 3,934 represents this situation. Which of the following is the best interpretation of x in this context? Okay. So what is x? Or let's talk about x. It's associated with 2. And then they reference a 2-hectare park. So the average number of trees per hectare in the park, yeah, that's strong. The average number of trees per hectare in the residential area, no, there's nothing connecting. We're isolated on that 2x. The number of total trees in the park, maybe. Total number of trees in the residential area, no. So the average number, yes, it would be A, the average number of trees per hectare in the park. And the reason they state is that it's given that a neighborhood consists of 2 hectares park and a 35-hectare residential area and the total number of trees. So and then they give the equation. Since the total number of trees for a given area can be determined by taking the number of hectares times the average number of trees per hectare. So that's just the definition of the function itself. So that's kind of like the constant. So that's the average number of trees times the size of the park itself, which is 2 hectares. 18. The graph shows the relationship between the number of shares of stock from company A, X, and the number of shares of stock from company B, Y, that Simon can purchase. Which equation could represent this relationship? Okay, lines. So let's get it into standard linear format, right? So we know A, comma X, B, comma Y. So what's the relationship here? Well, it's a standard linear equation. C is definitely not correct because you don't have a a y-intercept of 8. That definitely is not true. In neither is a, right? Because the y-intercept here is 40. So if I had to look at this equation and determine the y-intercept is when x equals 0, right? So if I plug 0 into this, I get 12y equals 480, and 480 divided by 12 is what? 40. There's your answer. Isolating on that, I think for linear equations, for graphs at least, isolating on that y-intercept is helpful. Circle A has a radius of 3n, and circle B has a radius of 129n, where n is a positive constant. The area of circle B is how many times the area of circle A? Don't overthink this one. 3n, right, equals, or is, I guess you could say, they reference 120, or 129n. And then the area, we know the area of a circle is pi r squared. I'm going to come back to this one. Oh, let's see. Let me take a look. So you have two, it's a system of equations problem. So let's go back to the top. So we have pi r squared, right? And then you have 3n, and then you have 129n. So they're saying substituting the value of r into the equation for A equals, so they're saying A equals pi 3n squared, or A equals 9 pi n squared. And then they reference that B is 129n. You can simplify that to pi 129n squared. And then dividing the area of the circle B by the area of circle A. So eventually this all simplifies to this. And really, that simplifies to what? Just the two divided 641. Yeah, 1841 or 1849.
The whole system of equations thing, because you just have to like, I think it's something I learned in math, but like for anything, the area is like basically like the ratio of the measurement that you're given. You usually just square that number to get like the differences in area. That ratio.
So you plug into the area like the equation, and then you divide the three, like
Good stuff. 20. The frequency table summarizes the 57 data values in a data set. What is the maximum data value in the data set? Maximum data value is 14. Not too difficult. A circle in the xy plane has a diameter with the endpoints 2, 4, and 2, 14. An equation of the circle is x minus 2 squared plus y minus 9 squared, which equals r squared, where r is a positive constant. So in doing this earlier, I recall that when they give you the equation for a circle in this format, they also give you the origin point of that circle, the coordinates of it. And that's actually 2, right, from this equation, and then 9 from that equation. So now that we know that, we can actually use a formula, which is this. So let's take that, and then we put it x1 minus x squared plus right? And then we know the center of the circle, and we know the endpoint of one of the diameter, which is 2, 4. So if we plug that in, the center of the circle as well as the endpoint, we get 2 minus 2 squared plus 9 minus 4 squared, or square root of 0 squared plus 5 squared. 5 squared is 25 equals 5. So that gives us the diameter, the value of r, which is 5. The measure of angle r is 2 pi over 3 radians. The measure of angle t is 5 pi over 12 radians, greater than the measure of angle r. So what is the measure of angle t in degrees? So setting this up, we have 2 pi over 3 angle t equals the measure of angle r, 5 pi over 12. So we need to get a common denominator with this, right? So we're going to multiply this. This is actually a simplified version of 12 over 8 pi over 12. That's 5 pi over 12, which gives us 13 pi over 12. And if we take that out and convert it back to degrees, remember 180 degrees is over pi, so 13 pi over 12 times 180 over pi. If you use your calculator, that'll give you 195 degrees. So see. A certain town has an area of 4.36 square miles. What is the area in square yards of this town? Okay, so this is a good one. It's kind of tricky, but not too bad. So let's calculate this number of equivalent square yards in a square mile. So if we multiply that out, like if we just think of it as a square, right? So we've got 1760 times 1760, right? Multiply that out. Which gives us 3,097,600, right? And then we're going to just multiply that. That was just the equivalent of 1 square mile. And then we have 4.36 square miles. So we're going to take that 3,097,600 And what we get there is that 13,505,536, which is D. Yeah, if you multiplied the two, like,
No, my question was like, where would you like both the 17?
well, it says in the problem that 1 mile is 1,760 yards. So a square mile, here, let's do the equivalent of that, is just 1 by 1 mile, right? 1 mile by 1 mile. So what, on the left side, what's the equivalent of 1 mile? 1760. And then the other side of the square is 1760. So, you know, just thinking of the area, length times width, right? Good? All right. For line H, the table shows 3 values of x and their corresponding values of y. Line K is the result of translating line H down 5 units in the xy plane. So this is a pretty, I mean, right? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that'll give me 160. We'll just take 2 points. 23 minus 18. 30 over 5, which equals 6. Whoops. So they're saying shifted down 5. So our slope is 6. So let's standard equation of line. Y equals 6x. Now let's plus b. Now let's use our table again. Let's plug in some values. So 130 equals 6 times 18 plus b, right? 18 times 6. 130 minus 108. So b equals 22. But, so we have this equation to start. 6x, yeah. Wait, I gotta get my sign. 130 minus, yeah, that's positive plus 22. Where's the line K is the resulting trend? So down 5 units. So if it's down 5 units, my B is 5 lower than what they've referenced. And then they want the x-intercept. So the x-intercept is when y equals 0. So 6x, I remember I had 22, but it's 5 lower. So I actually only have 17 because it's been shifted down. So my x-intercept is when, or my y-intercept, or it says, what is the x-intercept of line K? It's when y equals 0. So, did I get this? 6, sorry. Zero equals 6x plus 17. 6x equals negative 17. X equals negative 17 over 6. Yep, D. In the xy plane, the graph of the equation negative x squared plus 9x minus 100 intersects the line y equals c at exactly 1 point. What is the value of c? I have to look at 3 or 4 questions on the math section are pretty tricky. So they said, since this is a quadratic equation, right? that it's a parabola, and that a parabola can intersect a horizontal line at exactly one point only at its vertex. Therefore, the value of c should be equal to the y-coordinate of the vertex of the graph of the given equation. For a quadratic equation in vertex form, y equals a parentheses x of x minus h squared plus k. The vertex of this graph in the xy plane is h of k. So let's just write that out. The vertex of the graph in the xy plane is h of k. So the vertex is that h of k value. The given quadratic equation referenced above can be rewritten as holy moly. I gotta practice a little bit more. Minus 100. So if you simplify that out, it gives you y equals negative x minus 9 over 2 squared plus thus the value of c, they say, that's tricky. I gotta review that a little bit more. Last two, I'm not gonna put myself through a struggle session of that. We'll get better at the math as we do more practice. I need a break. Do they talk about like the SAT in school or like any preparatory stuff or reference like?
They do. Sometimes they'll put stuff out on like, we have like an app that we're all like using at school, it's like Schoology, and they send out stuff there sometimes. That's it.
Got it. Are they just like sample questions or?
Stuff like that. They're like, you can go to like this place and you can get SAT. Like from what I remember, it's like they like send out stuff like that. They don't give you the stuff. They just tell you,
A link to it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So for the rest of you that aren't in 11th grade, what grade are you in? I know you're in 8th, yes? You're in 8th? Okay. How about you guys? 9th? 10th? 9? Yeah. And what schools do you all go to? I? Okay. Smith? Fun. Yep. Is this helpful? Do you feel like the practice just like going over it? I know at the explanations I'll keep practicing and get a little bit better at it, but for me it's been a while since I've done this kind of stuff. I was practicing earlier this week, but next week I'll be a little bit sharper with the explanations. What time is it? Almost 3. I'm gonna use the restroom and then we can start the second reading section. Do you guys have like a school that you are kind of like a group, or maybe even a group of schools that you'd like to go for college, or?
I'm thinking about MSU.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think that's pretty high.
Yeah, I've noticed, I think all the schools in Michigan have increased enrollment, which is, I think, probably a good thing.
Yeah.
UMich is still pretty.
It's
they
insane.
They have a good cap on Rhode Island.
So many kids apply there. So many.
So I graduated in 2004, and I went to U of M. And from what I recall, I think there were just over 100 students. We were second after Ann Arbor Pioneer. Ann Arbor Pioneer had the highest number of admissions. U of M was, or Troy High was second after that. I've actually thought about emailing. U of M has admission officers for every like metropolitan area across the country, and then they have a dedicated admissions officer for like Metro Detroit. And one of the things, I think the number of U of M admissions from Troy High has decreased, but I don't know if that's because there are a larger number of students who are then gaining admission from IA, or if just generally Troy High IA Athens is down from 20 years ago. I'm interested in learning more about that. When I applied to U of M, we didn't have the common app. You had to fill a specific application out, which limited, because now you can just click a box and apply to any number of schools. That didn't exist 20 years ago. I applied early. I think that's probably the only reason I got in. I didn't take the SAT. I took the ACT. I got a 33 on the ACT. And my GPA was decent, but I don't think I would get in now, to be honest with you.
I feel like less people apply though.
What's that?
I feel like less people even try to get into UMich from Troy High, like, even then my brother graduated in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's more people trying to get into UMich than there are now. People are going to like Carnegie or like Purdue, or there's opening for, I don't know, just going to different schools instead of UMich.
Yeah, I mean, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. I mean, obviously there's like the career aspect of like, you go to school to do something to, have a career, a job, right? And whether, I know someone who started at community college who transferred into Michigan. So it's, how's it going? It's not where you start, it's where you finish. There's people, you don't want to get burned out, you want to like keep on a steady trajectory. Because as long as you just keep at it, you'll eventually get to where you want to be. All right, I think I'm going to start the second module. This is the first one? Yeah, this is the first one. Okay. All right. For painter Jacob Lawrence, being blank was an important part of the artistic process. Because he paid close attention to all the details of his Harlem neighborhood, Lawrence's artwork captured nuances in the beauty and vitality of the black experience during the Harlem Renaissance and the Great Migration, which completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase. Skeptical, definitely not. Observant, strong candidate. Critical, he wasn't critical about anything. Confident, I don't see anything confident there. Observant, post fits. Monica Lopez Ferreira and others at Brazil's Butantan Institute are studying the freshwater stingray species, something rex, to determine whether biological characteristics such as the ray's age and sex have blank effect on the toxicity of their venom. That is, to see if differences in these traits are associated with considerable variations in venom potency. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? Okay, let's go back to it. So these are the characteristics. We're talking about the effect of toxicity on their on the venom itself. Disconcerting doesn't fit. And acceptable doesn't really fit. Imperceptible, possibly, that is to see if the differences in these traits are associated with considerable variations in venom potency. So a substantial effect would give you a relationship where, those two traits have a discernible impact on the toxicity of their venom. So I'm going to go with D, substantial. Researchers have struggled to pinpoint specific causes for hiccups, which happen when a person's diaphragm contracts blank. Let's just go to which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? We've all had hiccups before, I would think. What happens when you have hiccups? Are you beneficially having hiccups? Are you strenuously, possibly? Smoothly? No, that doesn't quite fit. You're involuntary. You can't control, whether that contraction and expansion of your diaphragm. So involuntarily, A. 4, critics have asserted that fine art and fashion rarely blank in a world where artists create timeless works for exhibition and designers periodically produce new styles for the public to buy. Lucino Shoshone Bannock, beadwork artist and designer Jamie Okuma challenges this view. Her work can be seen in the Metropolitan Museum of Art and purchased through her online boutique. So let's just go back. Rarely blank. In a world where artists create timeless works for exhibition, new styles for the public to buy. So the first part, they're talking about how it's the commercialization of art, that art, so that fine art fashion rarely, fine art and fashion, timeless works of exhibition, designers periodically produce new styles for the public to buy. So they describe the artists are creating, fine art is in exhibition, and fashion, new styles for the public to buy. So challenges this view. So in the first part, we're talking about kind of like this divergence between fine art and fashion, where one is in exhibition and the other, there's kind of a commercialization of it, but then they reference that there's the specific artist who challenges this view. Her work can be seen in the Museum of Art and purchased in her online boutique, excuse me. So what choice there? Rarely prevail? No. Succumb? No. Diverge? Possibly. But they talk about a divergence in the first part, but then they give an example in the second part of someone who breaks away from that paradigm. So what is she doing? She's taking two things that are divergence and she's bringing them back together to intersect. That would be the word that best fits there. Scholarly discussions of gender in Shakespeare's comedies often celebrate the rebellion of playwrights' characteristics against the rigid expectations blank by Elizabethan society. Most of the comedies end in marriage, with characters returning to their socially dictated gender roles after previously defying them, but there are some notable exceptions. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? Okay, so they talk about expectations by Elizabethan society. Interjected. Now let's look at the second sentence. So they then kind of come back to, or I'm trying to think of the word, align with the expectations of Elizabethan society. So interjected to society, no. Illustrated, no, I don't see anything illustrated there. It's prescribed. It's kind of the construct, or the expectations put out forth by Elizabethan society that they're ultimately coming back and aligning to at the end of the play.
Number 4.
Or excuse me. Yeah, I could see that. So let me read the explanations that they have for each. For C, they said, the one that you referenced, choice C is incorrect because saying that critics believe that fine art and fashion rarely diverge or disagree or move in different directions wouldn't make sense in context. The text presents Okuma's work as both fine art and fashion, thereby undermining what the critics assert. This suggests that the critics believe that fine art and fashion rarely intersect rather than the two rarely diverge. Okay, good? Okay, cool. 6. In studying the use of external stimuli to reduce the itching sensation caused by an allergic histamine response, Louis Ward and colleagues found that while harmless applications of vibration or warming can provide a temporary distraction, such blank stimuli actually offer less relief than a stimulus that seems less benign, like a mild electric shock. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? So it's, there's quite a difference between the two descriptions. So we got a mild electric shock compared to harmless applications of vibrations or warming. So this right here is actually referring to that previous component. And if I had to pick, so I want to pick a word that kind of describes this first part to that second part. And is that first part harmless applications of vibration warning deceptive compared to a mild electric shock? No, I don't think so. Is it novel? No, I don't see the novelty. Impractical? No, it's going to be B. Innocuous. It's a very, innocuous is harmless compared to electric shock, which is something that is much more invasive. 7. Oh, geez, what? These words are the prophets. Does anyone want to try pronouncing that? Like, how would you pronounce that? Yeah. Like, X is Z, right? Like Z. Yeah. Yeah. It was situated on the Pacific coast, hundreds of kilometers southeast of Tenochtitlan. Yeah. Because that location within the empire was so blank, cacao and other trade goods produced there could reach the capital only after a long overland journey. Which choice completes the text with the most logical and precise word or phrase? So again, let's go back to hundreds of kilometers southeast, right? So there's a bit of distance between the two. Because the location, which was just described in that first part, within the empire was, what word there best describes the description that they previously gave? Unobtrusive, concealed? No, there's nothing concealed there. Unobtrusive. They mentioned that they had to long overland journeys, so that's definitely obtrusive. So that would eliminate unobtrusive. Approximate, something probably a little bit closer than hundreds of kilometers away. So really the word there I think that best fits is peripheral. It's peripheral. The one location was peripheral to the other. 8. The following text is from Charlotte Bronte's 1847 novel Jane Eyre. Jane works as a governess at Thornfield Hall. I went on my day's business tranquilly, but ever and anon vague suggestions kept wandering across my brain of reasons why I should quit Thornfield. I kept involuntarily framing advertisements and pondering conjectures about new situations. These thoughts I did not think to check. They might germinate and bear fruit if they could. That's kind of interesting. Which choice best states the main purpose of the text? A, to convey a contrast between James' calmness and internal restlessness. Well, she definitely sounds restless. That sounds like a good potential option. B, to emphasize Jane's loyalty. I don't see any loyalty there. C, to demonstrate that Jane finds her situation both challenging and deeply fulfilling. The challenging part I do align with. The deeply fulfilling, I don't see anything deeply fulfilling there. D, to describe Jane's determination to just secure employment outside Thornfield Hall. So she talks about employment outside Thornfield Hall, but I don't see the determination part, so that would eliminate D. So I'm gonna go with A there. Oh, fun. Most animals can regenerate some parts, text 1. Most animals can regenerate some parts of their bodies, such as skin, but when a 3-banded panther worm is cut into 3 pieces, each piece grows into a new worm. Researchers are investigating this feat partly to learn more about humans' comparatively limited abilities to regenerate, and they're making exciting progress. An especially promising discovery, anytime you get a lot of emotion in an SAT question, it's a good indicator, is that both humans and panther worms have a gene for early growth response, EGR, linked to regeneration, right? Text 2, when Mansi Svirstava and her team reported that panther worms, like humans, possess a gene for EGR, it caused excitement. However, as the team pointed out, the gene likely functions very differently in humans than it does in panther worms. Shrivastava has likened EGR to a switch that activates other genes involved in regeneration in panther worms. But how its switch operates in humans remains unclear. Based on the text, what would the author of text 2 most likely say about text 1? So text 2 says, look, this gene is present, but we don't know how it works. The end of text 1 says, kind of implies an especially promising discovery that both humans and this worm have this gene, but they're saying that we don't know the mechanism of operation for that gene. We don't know where the light switch is in humans to turn that off. So they would kind of take a more reserved view of the ability to manipulate EGR than the person in the first paragraph. So really, I think that's what we want to isolate on here. And that definitely aligns with B. That first claim is overly optimistic. Yes, the two both have those same genes, but again, we're missing knowledge of how that gene activates and turns on in humans. 10. The following text is adapted from William Shakespeare's 1609 poem, Sonnet 27. The poem is addressed to a close friend as if he were physically present. Weary with toil, I hurry to my bed. The dear repose for limbs with travel tired. But then begins a journey in my head to work my mind when body's work expired. For then my thoughts, from far where I abide, begin a zealous pilgrimage to thee, and keep my drooping eyelids open wide. So he's tired, and he's done with work, and he's kind of a little bit disconnected. So what is the main idea of this text? The speaker is asleep and dreaming about traveling to see a friend. His eyelids are wide open, so he's not sleeping. The speaker is planning an upcoming trip to a friend's house. I don't see that anywhere in the text. The speaker is too fatigued to continue discussion with the friend. I think this is all internal. I don't see any dialogue with a friend, so that would leave D. So he's thinking about his friend, but he's not, instead of immediately falling asleep. 11. The following text is adapted from Lewis Carroll's 1889 satirical novel, Sylvie and Bruno. A crowd has gathered outside a room belonging to the warden, an official who reports to the Lord Chancellor. One man, who was more excited than the rest, flung his hat high into the air and shouted, as well as I could make out, "Who roared for the sub-warden?" Everybody roared, but whether it was for the sub-warden or not did not clearly appear. Some were shouting bread, and some taxes. But no one seemed to know what it was they really wanted. All this I saw from the open window of the warden's breakfast saloon, looking across the shoulder of the Lord Chancellor. So this is in the perspective of the warden. What can it all mean? He kept repeating to himself. So the Lord Chancellor is saying this. I never heard such shouting before, and at this time of morning too, and with such unanimity. So what does that mean? Unanimity? They're all kind of shouting together, but it does seem like they're referencing two things, because he referenced unanimity, but the warden is saying he's heard two different things. So the question asks, based on the text, how does the Lord Chancellor respond to the crowd? He asks about the meaning of the crowd shouting, even though he claims to know what the crowd wants. So he does ask about that. This is a strong potential answer. We'll come back to that. He indicates a desire to speak to, no, he definitely doesn't indicate a desire to speak to the crowd. He expresses sympathy for the crowd's demands, even though the crowd shouting annoys him. I don't see the sympathy part. He describes the crowd as being united, even though the crowd clearly appears otherwise. That is a good potential one. What did they say? D, he describes the crowd as being united, right? Because that last part is in direct conflict with what the perspective of what the warden referenced, that they were two groups within the crowd that were shouting two different things. And the unanimity. 12. O Pioneers is a 1913 novel by Willa Cather. In the novel, Cather portrays Alexandra Bergson as having a deep emotional connection to her natural surroundings. Blank. Which quotation from O Pioneers is most effectively illustrates the claim? Go ahead and just read those. Just gonna. But we definitely want a deep so what we're looking for in one of these responses is a deep emotional connection to her natural surroundings. So of these choices, it should be one should reference her an emotional connection to her surroundings. After reading all three, I'll just skip ahead a little bit. It's A. Her heart, right? That is that deep emotional connection with her surroundings, and then she describes the surroundings in the rest of the that paragraph. All right. 13. So tables, right? Let's use that strategy that we had for the last time. Anything that they give us with tables, we what do we want to do? We want to focus on that. Let's read that last sentence first and then look at the table. So we got a table, and then thus they claim that two languages with very different spoken rates can nonetheless convey the same amount of information in a given time. Say that again. Two languages with very different rates, so one fast, one slow. What's the unique part of that? They can convey the same amount of information. So in this table, scan it real quick. Let's find two that have divergent, or one is very different than the other, and that the rate of information is the same. And then let's try to find one of the choices that aligns with that observation, right? Because that's ultimately what we're trying to do here. We're trying to find languages that have divergent characteristics, but they convey the same amount of information. And if you scan and look at this, Vietnamese and Spanish are very close to each other. And the difference between the two is, let me just double check that. Whoop. Yes, B. Vietnamese conveys information at approximately the same rate as Spanish, despite being spoken at a slower rate. 14. Psychologists Dacher Keltner and Jonathan Haidt have argued that experiencing awe, a sensation of reverence and wonder typically brought on by perceiving something grand or powerful, can enable us to feel more connected to others and thereby inspire us to act more altruistically. Keltner, along with Paul Piff, Pia Dietz, and colleagues, claims to have found evidence for this effect in a recent study where participants were asked to either gaze up at exceptionally tall trees or stare at exterior of a nearby nondescript building. After 1 minute, an experimenter deliberately spilled a box of pens nearby. Okay, so what do we take away from this passage? Right? That's their hypothesis, right? This is their, the two groups that they're referencing. Now, what would you expect? That, again, there's two groups, one a sense of awe, the other lacks that sense of awe. They're saying that the one with a sense of awe is more altruistic, and then they spill a box of pens. So let's, reading the options, participants who looking up at trees helped the experimenter pick up significantly more pens than the participants who looked at most of the building. Yeah, that definitely right off the bat. Because they're being altruistic. Because they are filled with that awe. The rest of them don't seem to align with that. 15, more tables. Okay, let's again focus on that last sentence, right? And then we'll go back to the table. So we got a table. However, transition happened at two very different rates in the two countries. So we're looking at France and the US. This can be most clearly seen by comparing the employment by sector in both countries. So just scan them real quick, right? 64, 68, 43, 41, 32, 14, 32. Okay, so something about 1950, really, something between 1900 and 1950, definitely between the two, seem to be divergent, right? And because one influences the other, you can actually almost services, let's see, 22, 18, 29, 28, 33, 38. There's nothing here. And then services. And they mentioned agriculture and service. So we can actually, strategy-wise, we can just completely eliminate manufacturing because nothing is referenced in manufacturing. And because the two components together, one is inverse of the other. If you have a high degree of agriculture, you have a low degree of services, or at least that's what this table suggests. So ultimately, when we look, we had that biggest jump between 1900 and 1950, so that would give us A. Many archaeologists will tell you that categorizing excavated fragments of pottery by style, period, and what objects they belong to relies not only on standard criteria, but also on instinct developed over years of practice. In a recent study, however, researchers trained a deep learning computer model on thousands of images of pottery fragments and found that it could categorize them as accurately as a team of expert archaeologists. Some archaeologists have expressed concern that they might be replaced by such computer models, but researchers claim that outcome is highly unlikely. Which finding, if true, would most likely directly support the researchers' claim? What is the researchers' claim? That they're not going to be replaced by computer models anytime soon, or they find that highly unlikely. So what of these choices would suggest that that they're being replaced by these computer models is highly unlikely? In the researchers' study, the model was able to categorize the pottery fragments much more quickly than the archaeologists could. That was true, but that wouldn't align with the researchers' claim that it was that them being replaced is unlikely. So that eliminates that one. B, in the researchers' study, neither the model nor the archaeologists were able to accurately categorize. That didn't happen at all. That's not referenced anywhere. C, a survey of archaeologists showed that categorizing pottery fragments limits the amount of time they can dedicate to other important tasks. that only humans could do. That does seem to align, because archaeologists do more than just categorize fragments of pottery, so in that sentence does seem to align with that. So that's a good candidate. D, a survey of archaeologists showed that few of them received dedicated training in how to properly categorize pottery fragments. I'm going to have to go with C because archaeologists do more than just categorize pottery fragments. And that's where there's a limitation and divergence between the computer model and what an archaeologist does, because a computer model and algorithm has a very specific purpose, but an archaeologist obviously does more than just categorize pottery fragments. 17. Although military veterans make up a small proportion of the total population of the United States, they occupy a significantly higher proportion of the jobs in the civilian government. One possible explanation for this disproportionate representation is that military service familiarizes people with certain organizational structures that are also reflected in the civilian government bureaucracy. And this familiarity thus, so they're very regimented, bureaucratic in the military. Civilian government seems to align with that. So we're looking for something that kind of validates the alignment or similarity between the two types of work. Makes civilian government jobs especially appealing to military veterans. That's possible because there's some congruency between the two types of work. Alters the typical relationship between military service and subsequent career professions. I don't see anything there. Encourages non-veterans. There's nothing in this passage referencing non-veterans. Increases the number of civilian government jobs that require some amount of military experience to perform. Makes civilian government jobs especially familiarity. I think that familiarity part makes it appealing to the military veterans. So that's what I would go with for 17. 18. Birds of many species ingest foods containing carotenoids, pigmented molecules that are converted into feather coloration. Coloration tends to be especially saturated in male birds' feathers, and because carotenoids also confer health benefits, the deeply saturated colors generally serve to communicate what is known as an honest signal of a bird's overall fitness to potential mates. However, ornithologist Alison Schultz and others have found that males in several species of the tanager genus Ramphocoelus use microstructures in their feathers to manipulate light, creating the appearance of deeper saturation without the birds necessarily having... Okay, so what does this passage say? They're saying if you ingest this thing, or the birds ingest this thing, they have deeper colors in their feathers, and that, the peacocking, it has represents better overall fitness to mates. But they're saying there's been an evolution in several species that there is a alternative mechanism that doesn't involve diet that allows the feathers to manipulate light to essentially create the same effect. So they're asking, suggest what? What choice logically completes the text? Individual male tanagers can engage in honest signaling without... No. Honest signaling is referenced with the diet, so that... wait, hold on one sec. Individual male tanagers, honest signaling without relying on the correct... I'm going to come back to A. B, feather microstructures may be less effective than deeply saturated feathers for signaling overall fitness. C, scientists have yet to determine why tanagers have a preference for mates with colorful appearance. There's nothing in the passage that suggests that. D, a male tanager's appearance may function as a dishonest signal. Well, that first part references an honest signal that pertains to the diet. And if you had to characterize and pick a word of the analog, if they describe this as honest, the analog to that links it to me is that dishonest signal. So I'm going to go with D for that. 19. When writing The Other Black Girl, written in 2021, novelist Zakiya Dalila Harris drew on her own experiences working at a publishing office. The award-winning book is Harris's first novel, but her writing blank honored before. At the age of 12, she entered a contest to have a story published in American Girl magazine and won. So she was awarded for her novel, and she was awarded for a story published in American Girl. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? Have been, no. Were, no. Has been. Yeah, are just. Let's double check that. Let's see if I'm right. Yep. The Alvarez theory, developed in 1980 by physicist Louis Walter Alvarez and his geologist son Walter Alvarez, maintained that the secondary effects of an asteroid impact caused many dinosaurs and other animals to die blank if left unexplored. The question of whether unrelated volcanic activity might have also contributed to the mass extinctions. So we're talking about secondary effects, right, of an asteroid. So we have two choices without but, and two choices with but. Out, but, no, that wouldn't work. Out, to die out, comma, but, that's a good potential. Out, and then going right into it left many, now that out. That's a potential, out, comma. But if I do that, land was out. I'm missing something here. I need the but. Yep, that's right. In winter, the diets of Japanese macaws, also known as snow monkeys, are influenced more by food availability than by food preference. Although the monkeys prefer to eat vegetation and land-dwelling invertebrates, those food sources may become unavailable because of extensive snow and ice cover. Blank the monkeys to hunt for marine animals in any streams of faux fish. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms? It's just forces. I mean, I can just well, wait, hold on. Forcing no, potentially. Tense change. So I'm down to forces or forcing. You want to take a crack at it? Which one do you think it is? Forcing. Yeah. Yep. Lucia Michel of the University of Chile observed that alkaline soils contain an insoluble form of iron that blueberry plants cannot absorb, thus inhibiting blueberry growth. If these plants were grown in alkaline soil alongside grasses that aided in iron solubilization, blank Michel was determined to find out. So let me reread that. If the plants were grown in alkaline soil. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms? If these plants, so it almost seems like a hypothesis. I'm leaning towards the question part. If these plants were grown, yeah, wait. Observe that alkaline soils contain an insoluble form of iron. cannot absorb, thus inhibiting blackberry growth. So they're saying if you have an alkaline soil, it inhibits blueberry growth. Then they kind of add, if these plants were grown in alkaline soil alongside grasses that aid in iron solubilization. So if you remove, and then it says determined to find out. So we don't know. We can eliminate A and B because that last part there references that it's not known. She's determined to find out. And it between the two, the sentence structure, could the blueberries thrive, fits better. The blueberries could thrive. Now that structure of that after a comma just doesn't seem to fit. Could the blueberries thrive? Is that right? Yes. In his 1963 exposition of music, electronic television, Korean-American artist Nam Pak showed how television images could be manipulated to express an artist's perspective. Today, Pak blank considered the first video artist, which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English. Well, this happened in the past, so I don't think will be would fit. There's nothing to reference that he was considered the first video artist, and then today is no longer considered the first video artist, so that would eliminate B. Is considered. So that I'm narrowing it down between C and D, and Shoto television. So that they reference D, and they say that it's because the convention being tested is the use of verbs to express tense. In this choice, the present tense verb is used in conjunction with the word today. Yeah, so is. The first computerized spreadsheet, Dan Bricklin's VisiCalc, improved financial record keeping not only by providing users with an easy means of adjusting data in spreadsheets, but also by automatically updating all calculations that were dependent on these blank to VisiCalc's release. Changing a paper spreadsheet often required redoing the entire sheet by hand, a process that could take days, which completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English. So, no, it's a run-on sentence. Adjustments. Prior and then a comma and then another comma, that doesn't seem to fit. This could be, because you have a whole other idea after that. And prior. That could be. But I think this is another run-on sentence. This is the best choice. Separates two distinct statements. In order to prevent non-native fish species from moving freely between the Mediterranean and Red Seas, the marine biologist Bella Galil has proposed that a saline lock system be installed in the Suez Canal in Egypt's Great Bitter Lakes. The lock would increase the salinity of the lakes and blank, a natural barrier of water most marine creatures would be unable to cross. Definitely not created. Tense change creates. Despite being cheap, versatile, and easy to produce, they are made from non-renewable petroleum and most do not biodegrade in landfills. There are two problems associated with commercial plastics. C is grammatically incorrect. The rest seem somewhat plausible, although two problems are suited. This is a tough one. Any ideas? Why?
Well, so they're talking about like how cheap and versatile like commercial well, I'm assuming if you put the commercial plastics together with the first part talking about cheap and versatile, it better connects that way.
Let's see what they say. So they say, yes, D is the correct answer. And they say this is because the convention being tested is subject modifier placement. This choice ensures that the modifying phrase, despite being cheap, versatile, and easy to produce, that this appears immediately before the noun it modifies, commercial plastics, and that this establishes that the commercial plastics, and not another noun in the sentence, as being described as cheap, versatile, and easy to produce. So, good job. You're right. Stomata, tiny pore structures in a leaf that absorb gases needed for plant growth, open when guard cells surrounding each pore swell with water. In a pivotal 2007 article, Plant Cell Blank showed that lipid molecules called phosphates are responsible for signaling guard cells to open stomata. Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English language? Biologist Yuri Lee. So what do we have? How are our choices differ? Two choices have a comma directly after biologist, and one of the other is whether you have a comma after their name, and or you don't have that at all. And we also have a comma here. So really, the best choice here is C. Otherwise, you get some mismatches with this, the subject and the noun placement for the the statement that precedes that and the statement that follows. Small flat structures called spatulae are found at the tips of the hairs on a spider's leg. These spatulae temporarily bond with atoms of whatever they touch. Blank spiders are able to cling to and climb almost any surface. However, definitely not. They're giving an example in the second sentence that basically corroborates the first sentence. And they're talking about a specific mechanism, and then they go into a lot of detail in the second sentence, and by connecting those two ideas, it's as a result of that property of their anatomy, I guess you could call it, that they're able to do this. So as a result of the phenomenon that they had described in those first two sentences. 29. In November 1934, Amrita Shergill was living in what must have seemed like the ideal city for a young artist, Paris. She was studying firsthand the color-saturated style of France's modernist masters and beginning to make a name for herself as a painter. Blank. Shergill longed to return to her childhood home to India. Only there, she believed, could her art truly flourish. So what really stands out to me is like they're saying how Paris is this great place and that she wants to leave. So there's this divergence, right? So what is a word that would kind of fit there that shows this divergence? Furthermore, no. Indeed, definitely not. Therefore, no, because therefore would be a connection between the second part supporting the first part. Still kind of has that room to break space between the two. Like they describe something, and yet still she had this yearning to go back to where she was from. So that is the choice that kind of allows that break between the first sentence and that second sentence. 30. Before California's 1911 election to approve a proposition granting women the right to vote, activists across the state sold tea to promote the cause of suffrage. In San Francisco, the Women's Suffrage Party sold equality tea at local fairs. Blank, in Los Angeles, activist Nancy Tuttle Craig, who ran one of California's largest grocery store firms, distributed votes for women tea. Which choice completes the text with the most logical transition? So they're two different cities. So they're, yeah, it's similarly. Conclude, there, you change places. If you were to then reference that she's in Los Angeles doing that, to conclude just doesn't align with that. For example, that doesn't align either. In other words, that doesn't align. Similarly, she's doing the same thing but in a different place, so that aligns in connecting the two. Almost done. So while researching a topic, a student has taken the following notes. I'll let you read all that. The student wants to compare the lengths of the two rail tunnels. So, which choice most effectively uses relevant information from the notes to accomplish this goal? So okay, we have two tunnels. Seiken in Japan, Hokkaido, it's 33 miles long. The Channel Tunnel, it's in Europe, it's 31 miles long. Compare the lengths. So in this answer, we should have some sort of comparison going on. Do we have a third? Wait, no. Yeah. There's no comparison in this first question. The Seiken tunnel is likely through, while the slightly shorter tunnels. Yeah, you're comparing a length there. That's an option. Seiken tunnel is C. There's no comparison going on. Both the Seiken. Yes, this is true, but you're not comparing a length. We're going to go with B. (32) While researching a topic, a student has taken the following notes. I'll let you read that. Okay. Fauna. Hybrid. Plant, animal, right? So the response or the answer should have an example of something that is a hybrid. That's pretty direct. I kind of like that one. Explanation, right? This is direct, but it kind of lacks an explanation. And then it gives an explanation. I kind of like this one. This is definitely no. There's no explanation attached to that. Subjects of fauna term that. This is kind of vague. I like this one because then it gets a direct example, and that direct example goes back to the example that they provided in the notes. So we're going to go with B. I'll let you read that last one. All right, uniqueness, that really stood out to me. Of all the bullet points, let's find one that really kind of exemplifies that uniqueness. And the bullet point here, her memoir was the only Civil War memoir to be published by a black woman. That's the uniqueness, right? So that would be D. Yep, cool. Almost done. Yeah. See if anyone's watching the live stream. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel it, I'm not even really doing it.
And the crazy part is that it's supposed to be, when you're taking it, it's even fast. I mean, you're thinking in your head, you're not saying it out loud, but that's some pretty fast thinking and processing to be able to get to every question and get through the easy questions so you have enough time on the more difficult later questions. But there's tricks to all these questions, and you could get, but honestly, I think it's just repetition. Like the more you do these problems, the more tricks you pick up on, and like the better you get with it. So just keep grinding. It's just a grind. You just got to grind through it.
Are you on the PSAT grade?
Oh, I love it. And it's so bad.
I did 1250.
Oh,
Yeah, but 10th grade I got 900.
what?
Yes.
So so I'll just tell you guys, the other reason why I'm doing this, I'm a little bit, there's Athens in the last 2 years after COVID, 45% of the students had a not proficient score on SAT math. There are 54 questions to SAT math. To have the state of Michigan defines a proficient score. Each section is worth 800. So for the math section, which is 800, you need 430 or higher to score a proficient. You would think 430 actually is over 50%. So 50% of 54 questions is 27. You don't even need 50% to score 430. You actually only need to score, I think, 24 or 25 questions correct. I just feel like it blows my mind that I don't feel like what you guys had to go through with COVID, I never had to go through in terms of school. I truly, like, if I had to learn through Zoom, I couldn't do it. Like, because there's a reason why we go to work and we go to class to kind of absorb that stuff. I think when you get, especially in undergrad at college, you get to teach yourself. Like, that's just part of, getting better at, you eventually learn to teach yourself stuff. But it's critical, especially in I think the middle school years, for them to be building those skills in the classroom. So seeing those score, and it's not unique to, it's true everywhere across the country, across Oakland County, across Michigan, across the whole of US, is that standardized test scores are down precipitously post-COVID. So the reason why I'm doing this is because I have a little bit of the issue with the school board, because they don't really talk about this. Like, I go to these meetings, I hear them talk, and they people get awards and stuff, but it's like the school board should be focused on getting the kid, you guys, as a grade level, back to what they were before, because the data is very clear. We're not talking about just a little bit. We're talking about a lot. It shows up most prominently in math. English is good. Reading and writing sections of SAT, we're very close to it being back to the scores that we had before COVID. But the math, really got to focus on the math. And the difference between, half these questions are they're on the math section, many of them are easy. You start getting, more difficult around 20 out of 27, probably 22 or 23. So that means for each section, you just have to get 12 or 13 right per those two math sections. I'm positive that if they put on their social media pages or they emailed parents hey, have your kids there's 4 practice sessions for free, there's Khan Academy, just getting that message out there, I am positive that would make the difference between an extra 2 or 3 correct questions, which would get them back to where they were before COVID. So I don't think the part that makes me a little bit upset is they seem allergic to talking about performance or even saying that anything is wrong. But in my professional experience, I'm 38 years old. You first have to define the problem and align that there is a problem, but they don't want to talk about that because I don't know if they feel it reflects poorly on them. So I'm just fine, I'll do it myself. I'll tutor some SAT. So. And again, I'm running for school board. I live in Troy. I grew up in Troy, and I don't know. I think there are easy corrective actions that we can take that would kind of move things in the right direction. And I'm not asking them to move heaven and earth. I just do easy basic things like email the parents that there's free practice tests, reference that there's Khan Academy. And I think that would just, we would get that's easy, that's it. And it would get us back to where we need to be. So, all right, let's get this done with. Tilly earns P dollars for every W hours of work. Which expression represents the amount of money in dollars Tilly earns for 39 hours work? Man, this question is the first question of the second section. It threw me off. I'm like, what is this? So it's much easier than I thought. So let's say you earn $16 an hour. So, over 1 hour, right? And they're saying kind of like the same thing. You don't know what it is, but it's P dollars for every W hours of work, right? So then they give us a second component to this. So I got that first part, P over W, and now they're saying I have, he earns an undeterminate amount, so we don't know what that is, so we're going to call it X. And then he does 39 hours of work. And this is just, a simplified equation that we can solve, which gives us the expression, if we were to simplify this, 39, we're going to multiply both sides by 39, by the way. Right? 39 PW equals X. Wait. Hold on. I think I screwed something up. P over W, X 39 over W. Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, exactly. XW, and then isolating for X, eliminate W on both sides. X equals 39P, which is this one. For a training program, Juan rides his bike at an average rate of 5.7 minutes per mile. Which function M, function by the way is just y equals. This is like in my mind, this equals that, and then y equals whatever. It's all the same thing. Function M models the number of minutes it will take Juan to ride X miles at this rate. So function M, right? And he's doing 5.7 minutes per mile. Let's do mile as X, right? Because that's our function. So that's this, right? The solution to the given system of equations is xy. What is the value of y? Well, they give us x, right? We're going to solve the first one. Pretty simple. We're going to plug it into the second one. Negative 12 plus y equals negative 6. 6, right? B. S equals 40 plus 3t. A certain equation gives a speed s miles per hour of a certain car t seconds after it began to accelerate. What is the speed in miles per hour of the car 5 seconds after it began to accelerate? So t seconds. So s equals 40 plus 3, 5, right? S equals 40 plus 15. S equals 55. Right triangle. What is an equation for finding C in a right triangle? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. They give us A, 4 squared. B, 5 squared equals C squared. So we got 16 plus 25 equals C squared. C equals square root of 4 squared plus 5 squared. It's just, you can just eliminate that one. You can take the square root of that, so that's easy. X-intercept is shown of the graph is x comma 0. What is the value of x? 7, right? Oh, 6. 4x plus 5 equals, really? Okay. Simple. Function f is defined by f of x 1/10 x minus 2. What is the y-intercept? So what does the y-intercept mean? X equals 0, right? So f of 0 equals, we're going to plug 0 in, right? Minus 2. Boom. F of 0 equals -2. So my point, they're asking for a point, so 0, 2. Because x is 0. The y-intercept is when x equals 0. The function f is defined by f of x 7x cubed. In the xy plane, the graph of g of x is the result of shifting the graph down. Okay, so at the end of the day, this is just a linear function, and it has no y-intercept, right? Or excuse me, yeah. We're going to shift it down to, yeah, it's just this. Why don't I, hold on. Cubed, do I get a negative? Is it like that? What is that, off the top of anybody's head, what is what does the graph of 7x cubed look like? Well, actually, you know what? The x part, like minus x7 x, like if this is a good one. So let's say the question asks, I'm gonna go left, or I'm gonna down, right? Left, where left is, so it'd be what, 7. If I'm shifting it left, so I'm minus 2. If I'm going 2 units, so x minus 2 cubed, right? Good practice. You know, they could just, changing a word, completely different question. Another system of equations. Okay, x plus 10, 7 equals 10. Well, guess what? X equals 3, right? So plugging that back into that guy, 3 plus 7 squared equals y, 10 squared equals, y, 100. So they gave us, we knew 3, and then y is 100, so it's a. Which expression is equivalent to? Okay, this is just rearranging equations. This is a negative sign, so I got 6x. Well, let's write it out. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. 7x cubed plus 7x minus 6x cubed. Double negative, right? Plus, 3x, right? Boom, boom. I just get x cubed, 7x, 3x, plus 10x. Does it ask me to simplify it? No. Simplify, you get x squared plus 10. Right? Function p is defined by p of n, 7n cubed. What is the value of n when p and n equals 56? So that's just a fancy way of saying 56 equals 7n cubed. Divide by 7, 8 equals n cubed. N to the what power equals, or the cubed power equals 8, it's 2. In the figure shown, line C intersects parallel lines S and T. What is the value of x? Okay, they're parallel, right? So this is, I remember a long time ago, I remember they said you couldn't, like, even if they like presented this, unless they stated that it was parallel, you couldn't assume that it was parallel. So you couldn't assume that this was actually, like, I don't know, 70 or something. Anyways. So if they are parallel, we know that actually this is 70 degrees, right? And if they're parallel, we know that that's also 70 degrees. So it's 70 degrees. A list of 10 values is shown. What is the mean of this data? You just add them all together. I don't know. I'm not even going to add them. It's 10. And then divided by the number of, by the number of numbers. So they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you add all these together and then divide it by 10. I think you all know that. The equation E of t equals 1.8 t gives the estimated number of employees at a restaurant, where t is the number of years since the restaurant opened. Which of the following? Let's take a step back. What does t equals 0 mean? What does t equals 1 mean? What does t equals 2 mean? In language, just no numbers. What does t of 0 mean? Exactly. So anything to the 0 power is what? 5 times 1 is 5. Which of the following is the best interpretation of the number 5 in this context? When t equals 0, they had 5 employees. So 5 is the constant there, and that is the number of employees when the restaurant opened. It's a little tricky. I went through this question the first time and I had to think about it a little bit, but anytime they give you an exponential equation, plug 0 into it and then see what the constant is, and then see what that constant is in relation to the rest of the question being answered, because it's kind of difficult to manipulate and play with exponential or logarithmic numbers. That's kind of really out of scope for the SAT, but when you plug 0 in, it typically ties back to something else that they're talking about. Each year, the value of an investment increases by 0.49%. Each year, the value of an investment increases by 0.49% of its value the previous year. Which of the following functions best describes how the value of the investment changes over time? So how would we write? Oh, sorry. G of x. What is the minimum value of the given function? Minimum value. Minimum is when x. It's what kind of? So it's one of these bad boys, right? So it's like that, and then it's shifted up 55. So the minimum value of something like that would be my my intercept, right? So it's 55. Each year, the value of an investment increases by 0.49% of its value the previous year. Which of the following functions best models how the value of the investment changes over time? Is this a linear or an exponential equation if it's increasing at a rate of 0.49% each year? So let's just like kind of model this out. What would be an equation that represents what they've described? So y equals, hold on. And then t is the number of years, right? So that's an exponential equation, increasing exponential. The population of Greenville increased by 7% from 2015 to 2016. If the 2016 population is k times the 2015 population, what is the value of k? So a 7% increase, if I had to write that out, would be 1.07. Equals 7%. If it was a 50% increase, it would be 1.5, right? That would be 50%. It's just asking that. Sorry, it's C. Which expression is equivalent to A of 11 of 12, where a is greater than 0. This one's tricky. I think what we can do. Yeah. They always, like, you always want to take it to 1 or 0 or something with this exponential stuff. So if I do that, what do I get? A of 13 over 12. And then a little trick, I think, with that is, what does this really mean?
The denominator goes on the outside.
Yeah. So that's 144 a to the 132nd. I think this, like, just like that trick or tool is just something that you'd pick up with practice. I didn't know it when I saw it the first time. An event planner is planning a party. It costs an event planner a one-time fee of $35 to rent the venue. So this is a linear equation kind of, right? So so I got 200, right? I got my budget of 200. My variable, 10.25x, and 35. 200 minus 35 is 165. 10.25 x equals what? I remember I did this. It didn't come out, like, it came out to a decimal. Obviously, you can't have a decimal of a person. So the next closest integer value to that is 16 people. If absolute value 4x minus 4 equals 12, what is the positive value of x equals 1? I don't remember how to solve this, so I had to go through this. So when you see an absolute value equation and they ask you what the positive value of a second expression, what you can do to rewrite that, well, you kind of have two equations, right? You have 4x minus 4 equals 112, and you also have minus 4x minus 4x, minus 4x minus 4 equals 112. So what do they say? Adding 4 to both sides of the equation results in 4x equals 116. So what does x equal in that instance? 29. And then they say, what is the positive value of x minus 1? Well, 29 minus 1 is, you can have two answers to this. You can have positive 29, negative 29, or and then you manipulate it with the second expression. It's 28. So because 29 minus 1 equals 28. This is another type of question they ask you. You can become more familiar with it. A cube has an edge length of 68 inches. A solid sphere, let's draw that out. It's fun to think about, right? There's a cube in there. I don't know how you draw that. I don't know. Yeah. You can imagine, I guess, it kind of touches the top, bottom, left, and right at one point, right? It's kind of circumscribed in the cube. So they say it's 68 inches long, and we know, so what do they ask? We know the midpoint, interestingly, is 34, right? So that's kind of interesting. What is the volume in the space of the cube not taken up? So we need to calculate the volume of the sphere the volume of the cube and the volume of the sphere, and subtract the two values. So what is the volume of the cube? Well, that's easy. It's 68 squared, right? Or sorry, 68 cubed. It's a big number. 300,432, right? In the volume of a sphere, what is the equation of that? 4/3 pi r squared, right? Pi r cubed. A little rusty. And my r is 34. And that comes out 4/3, sorry, 4/3 pi r cubed. And that comes out to 164,636. And if you subtract those two, you get 149,796. Not too bad. Those are fun. '23. What is the diameter of the circle in an xy plane with the equation x minus 5 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 16? The equation, they give us the equation for a sphere, right? So where is the origin point of, what is the coordinates of the origin point of the circle based on the equation that they give us in the
origin, they're asking for that, but it's 5, 3.
Yeah. So you can then use that to, what am I doing here? So we know this is r squared, right? 16 is r squared, so r equals 4. Sorry, I gotta just wrap my head around this real quick. Is that it? Is it that simple? I mean, this is the standard form. Like, they're just asking for the radius, right? Diameter. Oh, so the radius is twice the diameter. And we know the standard equation for, this is the standard equation, x minus h squared, y minus k squared for a circle, right? Equals r squared. So we know that the center point of, or the origin of the circle is 5, 3, right? And we know what r squared is because that's 16. So if r squared is 16, r is 4, and diameter equals 2r, d, yeah, 8. Took me a second, but for the exponential function f, the value of f of 1 is k, where k is a constant. Which of the following equivalent forms of the function shows the value of the k as the coefficient or the base? Constant. Isn't that, yeah. This is another one of those where they give you an exponent question and then you can kind of plug in 0. But I want to see what's the explanation. So if I had to write this as an equation, I get f of x equals 120. What? Nope. Yeah. F of 1.6 x minus 1. And they're saying f of 1 equals 120. Anyone want to explain this one? So they're saying I gotta read this one later. Even the answer they give is just way too brief. I can't quite, like, I don't understand why the other answers are incorrect. Almost done. We'll come back to that one. A model estimates that at the end of the year, from 2015 to 2020, the number of squirrels in a population was 150% more than the number of squirrels in the population at the end of the previous year. The model estimates that at the end of 2016, there were 180 squirrels in the population. Which of the following equations represent this model, where n is the estimated number of squirrels in the population t years after the end of 2015 and before, well, the duration of time from 2015 to 2020. So I think you could just kind of like plug some numbers in for this one, right? Because t of 0 means we had 100 and, okay, so the end of the year from 2015 to 2020. So what my first year is, so I'm doing 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, right? So I had 100, at the end of 2016, I had 180 squirrels. 150% more. So you can almost like, oops, sorry. So end of year, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, right? And then the other one was T. So if I had 180 squirrels, oh, and then this is the one, the modifier, 150%. It would be C. I think I'm overthinking this.
You just kind of spread it out, you just take it from when you're done.
Yeah. Did I get it wrong? Oh, sorry, it's B.
B,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
72, because it starts off, so 2016 it's 180, but it's saying it's from 2015, and so.
Yeah, that's the part that threw me off.
Let's say 150 more than the thing would be 2.5, because the original is 100 and you add 250 to that, so it's like 2.5 to the power of t, and 72 is just.
Yeah, I can't, like, why is it? See, I think to check my work, like, that's the part that, so they said from 2020 to 2015 to 2020. So I'm looking from, do I include 2000? See, the part that am I including 2015? So the start of 2015 to the end of 2015. 2016, 2017, 2018. No. So I have to start from 2016 because I'm going to January. I don't know. This one is weird.
Started like 2015 because it's saying at the end of 2016, the end of 2016 is still part of 2016, so it's after 2015, so it's 150 more than the previous one. So what you have to, so then like, and if you want to check your answer, I guess, you could just plug
Oh.
in 1 for the t because it's 1 year after 2015, and 72 times 2.5 is 180. So you
Does this work? Does this work? Yeah, I think you could do this way. Sorry. So it's 0, 72. What's 72 times 2.5? 180. So that's the part that throws me off about, like, the end of 2016. Wouldn't T be 1 or 2? Is this like?
The end of 2016 is still like part of 2016, so it's like it'd be.
So what? Okay, if T is 0, what's the year?
T is 0.
I think it's still 20.
It's 2015.
Okay, that's what I believe.
Yeah,
And if t is 1, what is it's 2000? Yeah. So if I plug in t of 0 in this equation, I get 70. Oh, yeah, I get 72. Duh. Sorry, I was doing the math wrong in my head, forgetting that this is this turns into 1, and then that, yeah, this makes it 180. 1 year, yeah. That's what happens when you do this. System of equations, 5 of x plus 7 of y equals 1, and a of x plus b of y equals 1. Is this just swapping them? What are they asking? In a given pair of equations, a and b are constants. The graph of this pair of equations in the xy plane is a pair, ooh, interesting, perpendicular lines. It's all good. You, thanks for stopping by. No problem. See you guys. So I'm just going to read it off. The correct choice is B. The two lines are perpendicular if their slopes are negative reciprocals. Oh, do you know these guys? Are they messing with you or something? Yeah. And I'm not going to torture you guys. We're done.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Feel like you learned something a little bit? Little practice? Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Towards the end of the math, my brain was not working.
Yeah, this is both a marathon and a sprint.
My brain's kind of mush right now.
Same.